Today's topic, parenting in confusing times. I'm not sure what was intended by this topic. I don't know what the word confusing times means. Does confusing times mean globally? Corona, what's going on with our children? Does confusing times mean trying to explain to our children what just happened, Rachmana litzlan in Meron, the collapse in Surfside? Our children are definitely confused. Looking around and seeing what's going on in the world around them, what they see in social media, what they're hearing from everybody else, we're in very confusing times. We're also in confusing times for parents. Parents are trying to figure out how to educate their children, how to discipline their children, how to create boundaries in their home without being manipulated by their children. Quite confusing times. And we'll try to address some of that tonight. But it's so confusing. And as parents, it's very difficult. It's 2021, almost 2022. A whole new generation. A generation of kids who think that we don't get it. That we, their parents, are out of it. And you know, they're right. In a certain sense, they have technology like we never had before. They have social interactions with their friends like we never had before. We wanted to play with a friend, talk to a friend, we had to call a friend on a phone that it cost money to call. Today, unlimited time, talk, text, unlimited data with every app and chat fashion. They're with their friends 24 hours a day. And if God forbid someone sends them a message and they don't respond instantly, they think, who knows what happened? So how do we educate such children? How do we make them realize that there's boundaries, there's discipline, there's things they need to do? It's a famous story that's recently been told, where someone came to the Gaon Reb Chaim Kanievsky and asked a very interesting question. Said to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, we all know the famous story, Yaakov loved his children, but the Torah tells us he seemed to have shown more love for Yosef than the rest of his children. And the brothers were so jealous. And it says that in the Pasuk that they were jealous of their brothers. They came to hate Yosef. They sold him. We all know how the story ends. Someone asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky, if Yaakov Avinu made the Ketonet Pasim, he made that special shirt for Yosef. He treated Yosef differently. How could it be that the brothers were upset at Yosef? Why weren't they upset at their father, at Yaakov? Reb Chaim Kanievsky looked at the person asking this question, and Reb Chaim Kanievsky said, this question could have only been asked in today's generation. Today's generation, someone could ask how a child could not be upset at their parent. Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, 80 years ago, 60 years ago, that question wouldn't have been asked. Because you don't get upset at your father. You don't get upset at your mother. If Papa said something, that's how it was. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky said, this question could only be asked by today's generation that no longer just accept what their father, what their mother says. Our children, they challenge everything. Sometimes they mean to be challenged, and sometimes we just feel challenged. They manipulate, we feel manipulated. So what do? How do we create boundaries? How do we bring up children in such an era? And I don't have all the answers. If you think after coming to tonight's class or watching this online, I have all the answers, I don't have all the answers. But let's look at the Torah. The Torah tells us a little bit, especially in this week's Parsha, we can learn so much about being a parent. Moshe Rabbeinu, in the beginning of this week's Parsha, Ve'et Hanan, Moshe Rabbeinu pleads to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He begs HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'etchanan el Hashem, I want to go into Israel. I want to go into Eretz Yisrael. And who more than Moshe Rabbeinu deserved to go into Eretz Yisrael? Moshe Rabbeinu led the Jewish people out of Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu put up with them, all their complaining, they're not believing in him, one after the next, and he, a loyal soldier, a loyal leader. Every time HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to punish Bnei Yisrael, loyally in front went up and begged HaKadosh Baruch Hu, save your people, bring them into Israel. He was their leader. He put up with the Am Keshe Oref, the stiff-necked nation. So who more than Moshe Rabbeinu should have been allowed to lead the Jewish people in? But yet, as we all know the famous story, that after Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock for the water, instead of speaking to the rock, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, he cannot go into Israel. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Avinu of HaRachaman, the most merciful of fathers, right? We think we have mercy on our kids. We love our children. And yet, Moshe Rabbeinu turns to the merciful Father in heaven. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells him, please, V'etchanan el Hashem, lashon techina, pleads with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pleading, please, let me go. I want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Do you think Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go because, hey, he missed the good looks of Israel? He needed a vacation. He wanted to go because there were so many mitzvot that could be done only in Israel. He turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please, I did so much for you. I deserve to be able to do the mitzvot. And what happens? HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, Rav lecha al tosef, enough, don't ask again. You asked enough times, don't ask again. And the simple meaning, the simple Berush, the Rishonim explain, had he asked again, Hashem would have had to have said yes. Avinu av HaRachaman, Hashem, the merciful Father, would not have been able to say no anymore. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, don't ask again. Don't ask. Do not ask again. Comes along the Baal HaTurim on this pasuk in this week's Parsha, Rav lecha al tosef. And the Baal HaTurim tells us 9 explanations of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu. How many times in all of Torah does the Baal HaTurim give 9 explanations? And I think over here, the reason why there's 9 explanations is because each one is a different parenting method that we can learn from. And we will see each one relates to us in different scenarios. Each one relates to us differently. And I'm going to go through them and you'll see. And we'll see how we can put them practically into our life. But this was a boundary. The Rabboni Shalom Kadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, you crossed a certain red line on his level and hitting that rock. And now the answer is no. You can't go in. But there's different ways to say no to our children. There's different times. How we say no, when we say no, why we say no. But there has to be boundaries. Children brought up without boundaries, without respecting boundaries, don't learn responsibility, don't grow up. Let's look at these 9 different Perushim in the Baal HaTurim, and let's see how that applies to us as parents. So the first Perush, the Baal HaTurim says, Perush ata hitchalta l'saper b'shvachai, rav hu etzlecha v'godol mimecham l'saper bo. You're praising me, but stop, because you can't really praise me. You don't understand who I am. You don't understand why I make decisions. You don't understand the bigger world. And you can't go in. Right? How many times are our children beg and plead with us? And the answer is, we know what's good for them. We're greater than them. We may not be smarter than them, but we may not have an higher IQ than them. But we have experience, and we see the bigger picture, and we know it's not good for them. and we have to say no. And when we see the bigger picture, and we know it's not good for them, that's a place to place a boundary. Dova acher, the Baal HaTurim tells us, Harav shelcha v'gadol mimeka v'hu adam harishon. Says there was somebody much greater than you who came before you. Adam harishon. Al yado niknes ha-mivtah l'chol v'iyafshar l'chol inatzal mimenu. Adam harishon, the sin of eating from the Eitz Hadat Tov V'Ra, changed the reality of the current world we live in. Since Adam harishon ate from the Eitz Hadat, there was a new thing in the world. There was death. And we cannot fight that. And now, he says, Rav Lecha, there's someone greater than you. That's what Rav Lecha means. Adam harishon. And now there's death in the world. So many times, we have to look at our children and say, yes, you want that. Yes, you want to go somewhere. But there's a world around you. And it doesn't fit in. It doesn't fit into who you are as a Jew sometimes. It doesn't fit into who you are as a person. It may not be safe. Unfortunately, a lot of the world around us, on social media, even creeps into our house. But outside our house, it's not safe for them. Once the Eitz Hadat was eaten from, once all this knowledge is out there, all this going on in the world, and we have to see that. And we have to be able to tell our children, no, there's greater stuff out there that's not healthy for you. And therefore, no. You have to create a boundary. The third Perush in the Baal HaTurim, Rav Lecha harbe pamim asiti kenegdi. This is more direct. He tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you were ready on Moshe Rabbeinu's level, chas v'shalom, we're not judging, but this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu. Shlach lecha nabiyat tishlach, when you asked not to be the leader. When you spoke bad about the Jewish people. You hit the rock. You did a few other things wrong on your level. And this is the punishment. This is what has to be. Sometimes we look at our children and we say, listen, you did certain things wrong. You can't have the next thing you want. We have to hold to it. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, listen, I gave you many chances, not only one chance. You know, sometimes we feel manipulated when we have to say no by our children. You're such a meanie. But sometimes we have to look back and say, and look at our children. So you have to earn it. You showed us, we gave you so many chances, you weren't responsible. We're not going to make the same mistake again. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told it to Moshe Rabbeinu. We can tell it to our children sometimes. We need to tell it to our children sometimes. That's number 3. Number 4. Davar acher afilu b'davar mu'at ta'oseh shelo k'hogen hu rav lecha lefi chachmatecha. Totally opposite of the last approach. Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, you're a great tzaddik. You have done so much good, but on your level, you made a mistake. And you have to have a punishment for that. Sometimes we have to look at our children and we have to tell them, it's not befitting for who you are. You're already a 5th grader. That's acceptable behavior or acceptable prank in 2nd grade. You're a 12th grader. That's acceptable in 6th grade. But on your level, how can you do that? Or you're a Jew. You're a Yehudi. You're a loved one of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How could we act like that? Sometimes we have to impress upon our children, they're above it. They can't do that. Do we do that to our children? Yes, we have to discipline. We have to tell them no. But we have to show them that I'm Kadosh. Kadoshim to you, we're a holy people. And we can't do that. Because holy people don't do that. Not because I don't love you. I love you. You're my child. But holy people don't do certain things. Mature people don't do certain things. It's not befitting for who you are. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe. On your level. And how often is that true with our children? Davar acher, he says, B'zeh yodei sherav l'cha kani rabach ki kama pam nitzchatoni V'ata lo tuchal lenatzcheni. Very simple meaning. It says, Moshe Rabbeinu, you muffed up other times. The Jewish people muffed up other times. And every other time I gave in. This time, I have to put my foot down. This time, lo tuchal lenatzcheni. Our children have to realize. We can be merciful. We could forgive sometimes. But if our kids know that every time they come home from school, all they get is a talking to, and you never really put down your foot, they'll accept it. Many years ago, I'll tell a story. Many years ago, I was giving a model lesson in a school. And after the model lesson, I met with the principal, and he said to me, I don't think I ever fired a rabbi because he couldn't give a shi'ur. Because he couldn't teach the Talmud, he couldn't teach the Chumash. Everybody who he interviews people who are capable. He says, but there's one thing that sometimes I have to let a teacher go for. He says, they have the old Jewish grandma syndrome. I said, what's the old Jewish grandma syndrome? He says, when the student looks at the teacher and says, please, I won't do it again, I won't do it again. And the teacher says, okay, just sit down, and doesn't ever really discipline the child. He says, those teachers don't survive. Because sometimes we need to learn that we have to put our foot down. That we have to discipline a child. It's not healthy for us to just tell a kid, they learn quickly. If they learn that all they have to do is say, please, I'm never going to do it again. I'm so sorry. I love they come to my office, but I said I'm sorry. Sometimes I call a parent and the parent says, but my son said he's sorry. He did. He said he's sorry. He means it. And in the moment he's saying it, 1,000% he means it. I'm not even questioning whether he means it. Not that I know for sure. Only Kadosh Baruch Hu knows what's in the heart of people. But let's say he means it, or she means it. 1,000%. But inside their subconscious, if there's no consequence for their actions, if we're always scared to put our foot down, then who cares? They learn quickly. I just have to go in, have to beg and plead, and say I'm sorry, and we move on. But real life is not like that. What skills are we giving to our children if we just let them please their way out of it? Really? When they get to college? When they go to work one day and they muff up? Please, I'm sorry. Chas v'sholom, something worse happens and they come in front of a judge. I'm sorry? Yeah, it may mitigate the punishment, but that doesn't really teach them. You have to be careful. Sometimes you have to put your foot down. Dava acher, rav lecha. Ata yesh lecha rav. Aval ani ein li rav, sheyatish v'ati lachein lo tovo. This is very interesting. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, according to this Perush, you are down here in this world, we could be matir neder. You make a promise, you don't want to keep it. You realize it's too difficult. You could go to a rabbi, 3 rabbis, depending, and you explain why at the time you did it, you made that promise, but if you would have known what you know now, you wouldn't have made that promise, and you could have a tarat nedarim. It says, but me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have no rabbis, I can't go be matir neder, I already issued this punishment, I can't go back on it. It's a very important parenting lesson. Yes, we have to have rachmanut on our children, but there are times when our children will use every manipulative fashion to get out of being responsible. And we have to look at our children and be able to look them in the eye and say to them, you could manipulate me, you could cry to your teacher and give a story why you didn't do your homework. Whatever it may be, you come up with excuses as long as a list of who knows how long of excuses. I can't forgive it. I can't permit it. Because if we don't teach our children, right? And there you go, you give an excuse, and sometimes it's accepted. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, excuses don't work. You know, the famous saying is after 120 years, when we come in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the only one we're going to be able to blame then is ourselves. Not even in parenting, in everything in life, right? Why? Because there, if it's a valid excuse, you're not going to be held accountable. If it's not a valid excuse, it's going to be obvious to you. At that point in the Olam HaNeshamot, There's no more making up stories. It's over. No more stories, right? So our children come to us and they have excuses. And we want to believe their excuses. But if we always believe their excuses and we don't show them that the job wasn't done, what you need to do has to happen. Figure out how to get around the excuses. Figure out how to overcome it, right? But if we just learn to accept their excuses, it's one excuse after another excuse after another excuse. I heard a story of a famous teacher. Beit Midrash level, a mashkiach in the yeshiva. And let's say a kid would come late to yeshiva one day. He wouldn't go over to the boy. Lock it down. We're not talking about little children. We're talking about Beit Midrash already age, college age, young adults. And he'd wait till the fourth or fifth time they came late. And he'd go over to them and he'd say, how come you were late today? And he'd come up with an excellent idea. My mother really needed me to help her. I keep with aim, I had to help. Okay, I understand, it happens. And on Tuesday, and on last week, Thursday, and one by one. And then by the time the fourth or fifth, if the person was ready, somewhat mature, they would smirk to themselves and realize, okay, I came late way too many times. It's all excuses, but it doesn't work. I wasn't here, right? You come to work, you come one day late to your work, your job, your boss, you claim your children, could excuse the second. At some point, the boss says, we need to get the job done. The excuses don't help. I have no way to get the job done. If you don't do it, it's your job. Are we teaching that to our children? That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying. I don't have anywhere to go to Matineh. Either you get the job done or you don't get the job done. We have to teach our children to get the job done. Next, number 7. He says there's only one leader at a time, he tells Moshe Rabbeinu. And now it's Yoshua's turn. This is very interesting. He's saying it, according to this Perush, it's not because of you, Moshe, necessarily. But B'nai Yisrael, it's time for a new leader. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his infinite wisdom, understood it was time for a new leader. There can't be two leaders at one time. It doesn't work well. It's time for Yoshua to take up. And sometimes our children have to understand that too. It's not the right time. You may want to give them something, but you knowing more than they know right now, you seeing the bigger picture, yes, it's a good thing what they want. But is now the right time for it? Very often, timing is everything. Is this age appropriate for our child? Yes, a smartphone has some positives to it. A lot of negatives also, but that's not tonight's topic. But does that mean that your child, when he's in 3rd grade, needs a smartphone? Doesn't mean that when he's in 6th grade. What's the right age? We don't give a kid a driver's license until he turns 17 or 18. But we give our kids an unfiltered smartphone where they can get whatever they want. At how young? There's an age, there's a time. Timing is everything. And as a parent, we have to think sometimes, not only is it good or bad, but is this the right time for it? Number 8, if you're scared of dying, Moshe Rabbeinu HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're scared of the Malach HaMavet, don't worry, it's not going to be done by the Malach HaMavet. I'm going to do it myself. I'll be there with you. There's times when we have to hold that child responsible. And there's times when there has to be a punishment. But we have to make sure our children realize we still love them. We are with them. We're not letting go of their hand. We are their biggest advocate. But a punishment that has to be done, whether it's discipline or whatever it has to be, something that they don't like, they have to realize we are with them. We are with them. We love them. And not that anything that they can do wrong will diminish our love for them. They have to realize no matter the grade on the report card they got, no matter what they did wrong in school, how they messed up, we love them. The news media today sometimes will berate a mother of somebody who committed a vicious crime. And the mother says, I will always be his mother. He made a mistake, he did an accident, but I will be his mother. And the media has it wrong. That's maybe some other society, but the Pasuk is telling us not like that. Our children have to feel the love no matter what. So many children who've gone off the derech, who've got involved with the wrong things, come back, and when you ask them why, they will tell you they always, at every moment, felt the love from their parents. We have to be with them. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu. You're scared of the Malach HaMavet? I'm with you. And Davar Acher, finally the 9th Perush. Rav Lacha Harbei Tovot Mutukanim Lacha Ma Rav Tuva Chashitzafant L'Reacha. What are you worried about, Moshe Rabbeinu? There's a whole Olam Haba waiting for you. There's a good world for you. Don't be afraid to die. There's a world out there ahead of you. There's a whole Olam Haba, and it's an excellent world waiting for you. Don't be afraid. How many of us have parents are ready to cut those strings and tell our children, don't be afraid. Move on. There's a great world ahead of you. Our children today are frightened to take initiative because so many parents have always been there without pushing them out in a certain sense. I call it grandparenting instead of parenting. If you ever go to the playground in a park and you watch how parents and grandparents are with children, you can usually tell right away who's a parent and who's a grandparent, not just by age. Because a healthy parent, when the child is scared on the monkey bars, says, go, you can do it, you can do it. Moves away, lets them do it, proves they can be successful. Grandparents are the opposite. Moshe, be careful, don't do, you sure? Why is that? And that's healthy, you should know. Because a grandparent sees their role very differently than a parent. A parent's role is to teach their children. A parent's role is to show them there's a world out there, that they can step outside, not worry that the child might fail, because they'll grow from it. When the grandparent is babysitting and takes the kid to the playground, they have one job: bring the kid home safely. And therefore they're nervous. You sure you can do it, Moshe? You sure? You're not worried? Don't fall. But a healthy parent says, no, go at it. Yeah, you're standing a little bit far away. You don't want your kid to get chas v'sholom to get badly hurt or hurt. But you have to let them fall sometimes. We have to let our children fall. We have to let them realize there's a big world out there. We'll be there behind them, but they have to go for it. There's a big world out there. There was an expression many years ago about parents being helicopter parents. They hover down and they're watching their kids, everything they do. Today I say we have snowplow parents. They're like snowplows in front of their children, plowing away the snow, plowing away anything the child may slip on. But can our children grow if they never fail? Can our children grow if they never fall? If we want healthy parenting, we have to let our children grow. We have to let them fall and give them the skills to pick themselves up. We have to create boundaries. We have to realize when it's the right time to say no, how to put our foot down, when to let ourselves be manipulated and say, okay, this time is different, but when to show them that sometimes no is a no. And if we put all these different 9 perushim, all this together, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, we could try to be better parents. And with siyata d'shmaya and with great tfilat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we can be successful with bringing up our children, another generation of nachat to come.